Hey guys, today I'm here to give you my top 10 favorite classics. If you are not aware, I am currently studying English education and I'm going into my junior year of college. So I've been exposed to quite a lot of classical texts during my tenure at my university, as well as just going through, high school and all of that fun stuff. So I thought it would be fun to share with you my top 10 favorite classics. This list contains books that I've read going back from freshman year of high school up until my sophomore year of college. So the list it's been building for a while, but I really love all of the books on here, and if you haven't heard of one or you haven't read one, I would really recommend you give them all a read. So these are in order from 10 to 1, so let's just get started. The first one is an oldie but a goodie, and I read this freshman year of high school, and that is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. It's a very easy book to read, but I really enjoyed it, and it has stayed on this list since I was 14 years old, so I read this book 6 years ago, and it's still on this list, so you can tell that I really do like this. You've probably read it. I think it might be a required reading in most high schools, but that's just me guessing. I could just be completely wrong. I really don't know, but I really enjoyed this. Harper Lee released a sequel to it, which I think is Go Set a Watchman or something like that. I never read it, obviously, if you couldn't tell by me not knowing what the title of it was, but I heard mixed reviews on it, so I didn't want to give it a read, and plus, I haven't read this since I was 14, so maybe if I reread To Kill a Mockingbird, I'll go read the second one, but for now, it's just To Kill a Mockingbird on this list, but I really enjoyed it. Number 9 is a book that you're probably going to see in a different video that I plan on doing as well, but I wanted to mention it here because I really did enjoy this book, which really surprised me when I read it. I first read it in my junior year of high school, and that is Friday Night Lights by H.G. Bissinger. I don't really care much for sports. I'm not a very sporty person. I am the least athletic person in my family, and frankly, it's considered like a Christmas miracle if I'm able to catch something that someone throws at me. Friday Night Lights takes place in the 80s at this high school in Odessa, Texas, where they are finally starting to desegregate the school systems, and they start doing it to make sure that this one high school can get a lot of black football players because they want their football team to be the best. It's a very competitive high school and a very competitive state and city when it comes to football. And it's basically about this one school year's football team, how the school reacts to the team, how the team reacts to their teammates, and to winning and losing games, and ultimately on their journey to try to win the state championship. I really enjoyed this book. It's not something I've read or would read if I hadn't been made to read it for school, but I was really happy I did because I really enjoyed this book. I think there's a TV show based on it, but I don't know how well of an adaptation that was. It's off the air now, but if you haven't given the book a read, I would really recommend it because I really enjoyed this. Next up is a book I had to read twice in college. I read it during second semester freshman year and first semester of my sophomore year, and that is Moll Flanders by Daniel Defoe. This is a very interesting book. It's one of the first novels ever written, and so the conventions are a little wonky. For example, every noun is capitalized. It's a little weird, but you get used to it really fast. This story follows a woman named Moll Flanders and her life. Basically, we follow her from when she is born in Newgate Prison as she grows up trying to become a gentlewoman. She eventually becomes a prostitute and then a thief. She is thrown in jail. She becomes a transported felon to Virginia, and you get to see her from birth until, not quite until death. You see her till a very old age, and I'm not spoiling anything. What I just told you is right here on the title page for this book. Moll Flanders is a very interesting story, and it's told as if it's a woman giving you her autobiography when really it's just Daniel Defoe creating this story out of thin air. If you are interested in reading one of the first English novels ever written, I would recommend Moll Flanders over Robinson Crusoe. I haven't read Robinson Crusoe, so don't take my word with a grain of salt, but I've heard it's a little dry and a little boring. It's about a man who was I think he shipwrecked on an island for like 20 years and it's just him, and I've heard it reads like a man who was deserted on an island for 20 years. So personally, if I wanted that type of story, I'd just go watch Castaway. But I really enjoyed Moll Flanders. I thought it was funny, it was very interesting, a good look into how far English novels have come since their conception to present day, but I really enjoyed it. Number 7, we have Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. I have read half of Emma, but I know the entire story of Emma. I know the entire story of Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility, but Northanger Abbey is actually the only novel, I believe, by Jane Austen that I've read in its entirety. I'm working to fix that, but to date, Northanger Abbey is the only one I've read, and I really enjoyed it. Northanger Abbey kind of makes fun of the stereotypical, like, romantic Gothic novels at the time Jane Austen was writing, so I really liked how it was tongue-in-cheek that way. Like all Austen novels, it's about a girl trying to, like, be courted and be married, and so it's a little bit on the cliche side because it is a love story, but at the same time, because she's making fun of Gothics, it's a very, very tongue-in-cheek, funny story if you know where to look. The main character of this, her name is Catherine Morland. I think she is like 16 or 17. She's youngish, and it's about her trying, like, she leaves home for the first time. She meets this guy that she thinks is just, like, he hung the moon on a string. She meets a friend who, depending on the way you read her, is like a total bitch or a very pathetic character, depending on how you want to see her. I really enjoyed this, and if you're looking for a Jane Austen book to read, I would recommend this one, although I'd also recommend Emma, Sense and Sensibility, and Pride and Prejudice, because although I haven't read them, I love their stories. Number 6 is a book I read junior year of high school, and that is The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. This is a very, like, this is the definition of a classic to me. This book is so good, and I'm sure you've heard of it or heard of its modern-day retelling, Easy A, the movie with Emma Stone. Basically, The Scarlet Letter is about a woman who is caught having an affair with a man, only nobody really knows who this man was, and the only reason they know she had this affair is because she becomes pregnant. Hester Prynne gives birth to this girl, Pearl, and she is made to wear an A on her clothes for adulterer, and she refuses to give up the name of the man who got her pregnant, and because of that the entire town assumes he is a married man. We've got a lot of drama around exactly who fathered Hester's daughter, as well as Hester raising her daughter, trying to make a living for herself in this very Puritan society where she is totally frowned upon for what she has done, and it's a very, very good story, and I would really recommend it, especially if you've watched Easy A, but you haven't necessarily read the text that inspired that movie. Number 5 is a book I read senior year of high school, and that is Viktor Frankel's Man's Search for Meaning. It's about Viktor E. Frankel's time in the concentration camps in World War II, and how he uses those experiences to further develop his theory of logotheory, which is basically his way of therapy and helping people cope with loss of meaning in their life. I found this book to be extremely influential and a very, very good read. It poses a lot of questions about exactly what causes us to lose meaning, how we gain meaning, and how all pain and suffering is equal, and it's just a matter of how much meaning you attach to a certain thing, and when it's lost, how that affects you. Logotherapy is a conviction that the primary human drive is not pleasure, but the pursuit of what we find meaningful. And it's a very interesting take on therapy and theory, and I really enjoyed it. And if you're interested in something to do with the concentration camps, but not necessarily his experiences in it. Like, he uses his experience in the concentration camp, but it's not a biography of what happened to him. It's not like Eli Wiesel's Night. It's about him using those meanings and experiences to help further his own scientific and psychiatric ideas and theories. I would really recommend this. It's a very good book, and it definitely kind of gives you a new way to look at meaning and how you find meaning in your own life. Number 4 on this list is a play, and that is William Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. I have read quite a few of Shakespeare's plays, but Julius Caesar is still my favorite. I absolutely love this play, and I think it has something to do with the fact that I really like Julius Caesar. I like learning about his history and his legacy and all of the things he did for Rome. I really liked the way I was taught Julius Caesar, and that might be one of the biggest reasons as to why I like it so much. Basically, this play follows like the last few weeks or days of Julius Caesar's life, and it's a great play. I really enjoyed it, but I read it sophomore year of high school, and my English teacher was one of the best teachers I've ever had, and he would read it aloud to us. He'd have us read it aloud. My teacher would kind of edit the lines to fit his own agenda or to make a joke. Caesar has a line where he says like, "For I am Caesar and forever shall I be Caesar," and like my English teacher switched out Caesar's name with his own, and just like little cheeky things like that that made me really remember the text. So I really appreciated that. I loved this story. I loved like seeing like "Beware the Ides of March" or "E tu, Brute." Like I really enjoyed this story. If you haven't read this Shakespeare play, I would recommend it. It's one of his like historical biography ones, so a couple of those can be a little on the dry side, but I would really recommend Julius Caesar. Number 4 is a book that I have read twice. I should have read it 3 times, but I didn't. I read it senior year of high school, and then I was supposed to read it both semesters of my freshman year of college, but I didn't read it the second semester because I had just read it and I was not rereading it twice in 1 year, and that is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is like the first horror story ever written, and it's one of the best. And there's a lot of misconceptions about Frankenstein if you haven't actually read it. Like, if I say the word Frankenstein to a normal person on the street, the majority of people would probably think that the monster's name is Frankenstein, when in reality the creature has no name, and Frankenstein is the last name of the man that actually created the monster, Victor Frankenstein. And one of my favorite things I've seen that I'm definitely turning into a poster for my future classroom is knowledge is knowing Frankenstein isn't the monster. Wisdom is knowing Frankenstein is the monster. It's one of my favorite quotes. Basically, Frankenstein asks a lot of questions about ethics and science and exactly at what point have you gone too far, and what makes a person a man, what makes a person a monster. Are we born good? Are we born evil? Do we have evil thrust upon us, or is it just our personality? Is it our destiny to do and be evil? It's a very, very good story. The fact that Mary Shelley wrote it when she was 16 or 18 years old, frankly, is amazing. It came to her in a dream, but then she also kind of wrote a lot of it as part of like a horror writing contest between her husband Percy, Lord Byron, and then a different author whose name I can't remember. But basically, compare that to yourself challenging Stephen King to a horror story writing contest. This is what she wrote. She clearly won. It's a great story. I would really recommend it if you haven't read it because, like I said, there's a lot of misconceptions about exactly who Frankenstein is, how the monster was created, how the monster thinks and acts, and I would really recommend it because it clears up a whole lot of things, but then it gives you so many great points to discuss. Number 2 is a book I read second semester freshman year of college, and it is Middlemarch by George Eliot. I really enjoyed this book. It's not a small book. It's a hefty thing. It's a bit of a brick. It's like 800 pages, and like it takes some dedication to get through this because there are some real boring bits, but I really enjoyed this. When George Eliot wrote this, she wanted it to be a study on provincial life, so you're supposed to see exactly how everyone's life goes down, their personal life, their private life, their public life, their work life, all of that fun stuff, how they interact with people, how they think about things. This is considered the quintessential Victorian novel, and I can definitely see why that is because the Victorian themes in this book are loud and prominent and very hard to ignore. But I really enjoyed this book. There were 2 characters that just like bothered the crap out of me because they were so boring, like Lydgate and Rosalind. Y'all can stuff it. I don't care about your problems. But then you get characters like Dorothea Brooke, and you just want to learn more about Dorothea. You want to see her grow on this journey to see exactly where she goes, how she handles things. It's a great, great story. If you're interested in Victorian literature, but you don't really know where to start, This is not a thin book, but it's a good one and I would recommend it. And number 1, my all-time favorite classic, probably won't be a surprise to you if you watched my top 10 favorite books of all time because it was number 2 on that list, but it is John Milton's Paradise Lost. I wanted to show off this copy of it rather than the paperback because I love this copy. Like, Franklin Library gives me so much life, holy shit. So basically, I actually have 2 separate videos on Paradise Lost, which I will link down there if you're curious about. One is a book review of it, and the other is a discussion as scholarly type, hopefully it comes across that way, of books 1 through 3. Paradise Lost is the greatest English epic to ever be written, and basically it's a retelling of the book of Genesis, and it's a great, great book. I had to read it senior year of high school, and then second semester freshman year, and second semester sophomore year, so I've studied it 3 times, and it just gets better and better and better. I've got so many annotations in my paperback version of it, it's kind of ridiculous, but I'm not writing in this one because this is just too pretty. Like, shout out to Hannah for getting me this. Thank you, girl. You're the best. This book's amazing. It's amazing. And I don't want to discuss it too much because, like I said, I've got those 2 videos down there you could go watch if you're curious, but if you haven't read it, please do it. It's amazing. It's a widely controversial and influential text, and it's my favorite, so hopefully that tells you something. Right, so those are my top 10 favorite classics of all time. I love all of the books on that list. The list is maybe not constantly changing, but things are always moving around, and I'm being exposed to so many different books and authors. That is so exciting for me because I want to continue growing my classical library and knowledge so I'm able to bestow more classical knowledge onto my future students. And yeah, I think those books in themselves are a great way to start. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you're having a great day. And at some point down the line, I'm not really sure when that video will go up, but I will be filming some of my favorite non-fiction books. So stay tuned for that. And I will see you with another video. Bye!